Welcome to Entrepreneurship 101. We appreciate that you braved the first day with snow to come this evening. What I wanted to announce first was indeed what we called E201 or Entrepreneurship 201 last year. We call more often the Entrepreneurs Toolkit workshops. They are workshops offered to Mars clients normally, but we are running a special session for Entrepreneurship 101 attendees. So you don't have to be a client, you don't have to go through the whole client registration process and intake and all that, because it's quite hard because it takes weeks. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run a series of 3 workshops in January to help people prepare for the Upstart competition, or even if you want to just do the workshops, you don't have to be applying for the Upstart competition. So we wanted to show you that video to give you a sense of what the workshops look like. They are indeed way smaller, way more hands-on. They're round tables, which Joe and I thought was kind of funny tonight that we got round tables because that's what he's used to. So what do the workshops look like? There are 3. The first is designing a value proposition. It's January 16th. They're all about 4 hours long with breakfast. The first one, you will work in groups to come up with a 1-sentence value proposition, and indeed you criticize each other. It is very much a peer learning experience, as well as we'll have probably 2 or 3 facilitators and subject matter experts from Mars in the room to help you. The second workshop is called Designing a Business Model. Oh, and for people who are writing this, we actually have a sheet. Sorry, I should have said it earlier. On your way out, just grab this sheet that says Entrepreneurs Toolkit Workshops. It has this information as well as how to apply. So the second one, again, is Designing a Business Model. It's January 20th, and this is where you work on the Alexander Osterwalder's business model canvas, which Joe will introduce today, and it's a fantastic model that we use in our workshops to help people really flesh out different ideas in their business model. So AJ was able to introduce you to different kinds of business models. Now you get into the nitty-gritty of putting your value proposition together and fleshing out different areas of your business model. And the third one is very important to the Upstart competition, and where your value proposition and your business model are going to really feed into your pitch. So you have to sort of start from the basics to get to a great pitch. The third session is called Perfecting Your Pitch, and it's January 26th, and the deliverable for that is basically a pitch deck of 10 slides. So if you want to apply for the workshops, it's on this sheet, and we will be asking you to send your name, company name, and 3 to 5 sentences about yourself to Entrepreneurship 101 by December 9th. So that's we only have 30 spots, so everybody who applies might get in, or we might have to do a little bit of, have a look through and see who's sort of ready for the program. The second step is that we will let you know if you've been accepted into the workshop programs by December 16th, and we'll give you a link. So if you're accepted, we ask that you pay a $100 deposit. We ask this because a lot of people sign up with good intentions and then take spots and then they don't show up. So the workshops are free if you attend all 3, but we ask that you commit to them by paying a $100 deposit, and this is fully refundable. So with that, I will introduce one of our workshop facilitators, Joe Wilson, who's going to be speaking on value proposition today. Value proposition is a very important lecture that we added last year, and it got rave reviews because Joe is an extremely strong communicator. So Joe works for Mars. He's helped with the Entrepreneurs Toolkit Workshop series. He also works with education entrepreneurs selling into the education space, and he does a number of activities with the social innovation practice. He is a science and technology writer. He writes, you can see his work in Now Magazine, The Globe and Mail, Spacing, and Young Street from time to time. He's also appeared on a number of TV shows talking about science and technology topics. So coming from a science background, he's an honors Bachelor of Science in Astronomy and Linguistic Anthropology, and then he did a B.Ed focusing on global education and social justice. He spent some years teaching high school, physics and English, science, and mathematics. In 2009, he was nominated for the Premier's Award for Teaching Excellence, and you'll see when you hear him speak how good he is. I'm making him nervous.
Oh, I'm live. Hello.
Yeah, you're live. Don't go to the washroom. So he is also an entrepreneur. He's a little bit of a renaissance man. He's the executive director of the Treehouse Group, which is a social purpose business dedicated to fostering innovation by hosting cross-disciplinary events for corporate or non-for-profit events. So they host the monthly Treehouse Talks, which happen at the Toronto Reference Library and other locations. And they just had Toronto's first Maker Fair in spring 2011 at the Evergreen Brickworks. So with that, I welcome Joe to the stage.
Thanks. Thanks, Gary. Okay, good evening. I'd better communicate well, otherwise you'll be all disappointed. So it's really exciting to be doing this again. I did this last year, and it's so nice that this program keeps growing. It's so exciting to, am I speaking into all three mics at the same time? It's exciting to know that everybody's got their own ideas and their own projects percolating, and our job is to get them out of your head and into the world and try to get them successful. So I'm going to be talking, my lecture from last year is online, but I changed a few things this year just based on reading I've done over the last year on some stuff we've been working on. And the other thing I decided to do about 5 minutes ago is actually make use of these rounds here, which is perfect. So there's opportunity for you to be able to kind of do some work with me as we're going along here. It's really the only way to get this stuff, right? Is to do it yourself, make a mistake, go back and try again. So most of value proposition itself is very simple. It's one sentence. That's what this whole thing is about, is to get one sentence that describes your business, who you're offering to, and the value you bring them. But that simplicity hides an entire, PhD's worth of activities we could be doing to pick the best value dimensions, to pick the best target customers. So what we're doing and what we do in these workshop series is we cull our favorite tools and activities from the Entrepreneur's Toolkit, from the workbooks, from the articles, and we put them into this workshop format. Those are the key tools that you can use to put yourself towards a value proposition. So let's just jump right in here, and I want to start with what not to do, and something that if you're being honest, how many people are in science here, have a science background, a technical background? A third, maybe? Okay. So my background is in physics and astronomy, so I am completely guilty of the jargon speak. When entrepreneurs come into Mars and say, hey, I've got a great idea for business, we need help, and we ask, what do you got? It takes a long time to figure out exactly what they're talking about. They're stuck in jargon mode. And this is kind of what it looks like.
Hey, I've got a great idea for a business.
That's exciting. Tell me about it.
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
Huh. That's a little confusing. Can you dumb it down for me?
Sure. What I do is I take a proprietary isomer that I developed with a picric acid wash that hollows out the carbon bonds and replaces them with a nanotube wrapping.
Okay, so I guess it's pretty technical.
Oh yeah. I've been working on this isomer for 9 years.
So what's the business idea?
To sell it.
To who?
Everybody will want one.
What for?
So they can wrap their volatile organic compounds in carbon nanotubes.
I think you might need a target customer. I don't think I need to wrap my compounds in your nanotube.
Well, maybe not you.
So, for people who buy it, what's the value you are providing them?
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
You've said that already. This is getting annoying. Why should anyone care about your isomer?
I spent 9 years on this.
I know that. Okay, pretend I'm an investor. How can I make money off your product?
By selling it.
You're a smart guy, but try not to think like a scientist. Think like a business person.
Okay. Value chain. Term sheet.
I have to go now and answer that.
That's not your phone.
I know.
All right, so that those little extra normal videos were floating around Mars forever. You can make them say whatever you want. They're great. They're a lot of fun. But the idea there is that you've got two really smart people who just can't communicate, right? The jargon is getting in the way. For the scientist, the value of what he had invented is completely self-evident because he lives in this world. Other chemists might know exactly what he's talking about. But for everybody else, we need to have it spelled out for us. We need him to take us by the hand and take us step by step on what this means. What this means is, and we found this out at the end of the third workshop, so there was, 10 hours of this, and then finally we got to the bottom of it, and somebody else had suggested. Essentially what it is he's developed this chemical additive. You put a few drops into anything that can be cast, like plastic chairs or even paint manufacturing. And it reduces the harmful emissions, right? The nasty emissions. So it makes it a greener product. And we were like, that's a great idea. Why didn't you just tell us that? And he said, I did tell you this. I kept telling you, I've created a chemical isomer that wraps volatile organic compounds. And he didn't see the difference, right, in language there. But of course, it's integral to the success of his business that he be able to articulate it in a way that everybody understands. So your value proposition is there's a lot of work that goes into this sentence. It's a statement of the values that you deliver a certain target customer. Values are not technology. Values are not features. Right? Values are things that people value in their lives. Right? Happiness, speed, ease of use. Those are values. Saving money, that's a value. I'll unpack some of them later. But, and this is something that I've been thinking a lot about in the last year. Your value proposition is a statement, but we shouldn't ever expect our value proposition to remain static. It's going to change. It's going to change with market forces. It's going to change if your competition kind of comes up from behind. It's going to change through a number of reasons. So you can think of your value proposition as a hypothesis, as a moment in time. And that's kind of why I go back to the scientists, and they'll know what I mean, is, of course, you've got a hypothesis that needs to be tested. So you bring it out into the lab, which in our case is the marketplace. So you've got to test it on people. Ask people. Ask them, would you pay money for this? Does this make sense to you? And only after we've validated our value proposition, yes, this is a decent exchange of value, people seem interested in this, then you can start to build some prototypes, and then you can start to scale and start to put some money in. One of the problems is that people put a lot of money into something they think is going to solve a great problem, but they don't ever validate that with real customers. And that can lead to an enormous amount of waste. So Eric Ries talks about this in this book, The Lean Startup. Has anybody seen this yet? A few people? I really would recommend it. It's an easy read. None of it's entirely new, but he puts it together in a really easy way. He was here at Rotman speaking a couple of months ago, and he had some great tips for people. He was part of a company. What they were doing is they were creating three-dimensional avatars for instant messaging networks. And they thought that would be really cool. People could share their avatar, and you'd invite your friends. They could customize their avatar. It seemed like a pretty cool idea. So they went into writing code mode, and they coded and coded and coded. And what they wanted to do is make it so that these avatars could work across any of the instant messaging platforms, right? So Google Chat, you could talk to somebody on ICM or whatever, ICU. So they spent months doing this, right? They had, 250 avatars. It could work on every single platform. They were very proud of it. Great code, he says. It was great code, very elegant, very beautiful. Then, of course, they get a focus group, and everybody's like, I don't know if this is cool. I don't know if I like it. Teenagers. And they say, well, of course it's cool. Look at your avatar. You can talk to your friends. And he says, yeah, okay, I got my avatar. And then they're like, okay, now download it. He's like, I'm not going to download it. He says, why not? Well, I don't know if my friends think it's cool yet. And I'm not going to do something that they might think is not cool. So they went back and forth with this teenager and realized it just wasn't going to work. So they'd spent 6 months on an idea, and they had a value proposition. You know, the values were interoperability amongst all the different networks. The values were, you know, nicely designed avatars, and the values were that it was free to download but cost money to upgrade. So free to download. So those are pretty decent values, but it didn't survive the test of the marketplace, right? But the biggest realization of this is that they could have come to that conclusion in a week, right? You make one avatar that just sits on a page, right? It could even be a static website. You bring the guy in and you say, there's your avatar. Do you want to download and find out more? And he says, no, I don't know if it's cool yet, right? You've spent a day's worth of work putting up a mock web page, and you've got the answer, which is that you don't have the right value proposition yet. You need to go back and iterate and change it and find another way in. So I'm going to be emphasizing heavily this idea of testing, of testing all your assumptions as we go. One of the questions that often comes up is how is the value proposition different from, say, an elevator pitch? So I'll just deal with that very quickly. An elevator pitch, this is, for me anyway, this is the way I understand it. An elevator pitch is like a 30-second conversation starter in a more casual setting. And you got to have a good hook, right? I buy dead magazines as somebody's hook. I read about this a little while ago. Somebody says, hey, what do you do at a conference or something? And he says, oh, I buy up dead magazines, which is a great hook because then everybody's going, why would you do such a thing? That sounds silly, you know. But then he says, well, I troll around and I look for print publications that are dead or dying. And then I buy them up, I repurpose them in a digital format, right, and kind of salvage them. You know, so that's a great little elevator pitch. A tagline is much shorter, and it's just an ad compliment, right? We know money, built for the road ahead. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Those are taglines, ad lines. Mission statements. Mission statements are a statement of the purpose of the entire company. So Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Mission statements are aspirational. They don't describe a specific product or service like value propositions do. So underneath that mission statement, Google, by this point, Google probably has hundreds of different value statements for all of the different pieces of its business. But kind of that still fits in with the overall model of the mission statement. The mission statement is what the company wants. The value proposition is what the customer wants, what you're offering the customer. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What we're going to be looking for here, and your goal, is to write a sentence with these three things in it. What your product or service is, the target customer, and the value you provide to them. Three things. What should happen is, as an emergent property of this system of three things, what should emerge is that your combination of these elements is unique and it hasn't been done before. So people should go, oh, I get it, that's interesting, I've never seen that before. What we don't want is, and we get this often, is people write value propositions that are so vague because they want it to encompass all the things they want to do with their business. They say something like, XYZ Industries creates platforms for people to innovate, right? Which says nothing. You might as well not have one, right? That could apply to 1,000 companies. You need to be very specific. What kind of platform? Is it a platform made of bricks and mortar? Is it a web platform? Is it a software as a service? You know, is it an application? What is it? So be as specific and as granular as possible. So let's look at some examples, just so you have a sense of what these feel like. On the right, I'm going to put bad versions. Right? This is the chemical isomers on the right. And on the left, I'm going to put a decent value proposition. And a full disclaimer, these are my inventions, right? These aren't officially the value propositions of Winners or something, but everybody knows Winners, right? The department store. So on the right, it says, Winners is an off-price department store owned by TJX that employs international sourcing and buying power. So, that's true. That's not a lie. That's true. But it says more about their business model and the technology that lies behind the offering to the customer. That's on their website, by the way. I just cut and pasted from their website. But it's not on the front page. It's the answer to a question right at the bottom, something like, how is Winners able to offer such deep discounts? Or something like that. So, a customer-facing value proposition says this. Winners is a department store that offers fashion-conscious consumers the latest brand names for up to 60% off. Okay? This is pretty clear. We'll look for these three dimensions in there. What is it, for whom, and what are the values? What is it? In red, it's a department store. Who is it for? It's for fashion-conscious consumers. What are the values? Latest brand names, so that speaks to status and brand. And 60% off, so that speaks to cost savings. And that's a nice specific cost savings too, right? 60% off, that's great. Oh, this is my chemical isomer friend. The value proposition we ended up with him after 3 days is on the left. So he started with his A1 Industries has discovered a chemical isomer additive that allows for a reduction of VOC emissions, or something like that. I wasn't listening that closely. So the version we come up for him was A1 Industries has developed an economical and easy-to-use chemical additive that allows paint manufacturing companies to reduce the environmental impact of their products. So here are the three. What is it? It's a chemical additive. Who is it for? It's for paint manufacturing companies. What are the values? There's three. It's easy to use, it's economical, and it reduces environmental impact. So those are the three benefits, or the three values you get out of that, right? I mean, the benefit of making it so specific like that is that a paint manufacturing company reads that and goes, oh, this is exactly for me. How perfect. What a perfect fit. Now, you can use the same value proposition and send it to a plastic chair manufacturing company and just change the words out, right? But the point is that a value proposition should speak to somebody, right? It's a message saying, I've got something for you, very specific, and that should lead to the next steps, next conversations. Google. Google uses a patented page ranking algorithm to make money through ad placement. That's a summary of their business model, really, right? How they make money. On the left, we say Google is the world's largest search engine that allows internet users to find relevant information quickly and easily. Note, of course, like I said before, that this is just the value proposition for Google, the search engine Google, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't keep track of all the things Google have bought in the last 3 years. They've got thousands of these, I'm sure. So what are the three things? What is it? It's a search engine. Who's it for? Internet users. Values, relevance, speed, and ease of use. Those are the three preeminent values that they're selling. And they've had a lot of people try to mess with this. You know, Google's homepage, it's got a box on it, and you type stuff in there. It's beautifully simple. Over the years, people have said, hey, Google, that's all wasted space. Why don't you add this and this and this and this and this? No, because it's going to mess with our key value that we offer our customers, which is ease of use. I just want to bring this point up, and then if you want to talk about it more, we can perhaps, in the Q&A, if you have any questions about this. You know, I've written this value proposition for what we might call the end users of Google, the search engine Google. But who are their actual customers? Who's Google's customers? The advertisers, exactly. So Google needs to have a value proposition for them too, because they actually do pay the bills. So what does Google offer them? Google is the world's largest search engine that automatically provides advertisers with potential customers tailored to the ad content, increasing click-through rates and conversion rates. So the values that we're talking about to the advertisers, automation, tailored views, increase of click-through rates, increase of conversion rates, those are values that speak directly to the advertiser. They are different from the values that speak to the end user. Right? This is a problem with any area you're talking about multi-stakeholder decisions. A lot of the clients I work with are in education. So sometimes we have a value proposition for the teachers, one for the principal, one for the superintendent, trustee, Ministry of Education, union head, professional organizations, parents, and students themselves, right? So you need a value statement that speaks to their needs and their values. That's how you get in the door. So, I mean, I've been batting around this word value, and in workshops we take a while and unpack this. And one of the things that comes up, the first two that always come up when you talk about value in a business setting are time and money, right? And in fact, in North America, they're often equatable, right? You can spend time and save time, just like you can spend and save money. It's a powerful metaphor. There's lots of other things here, though, that we value. We evaluate convenience, quality, good user interface, our health, aesthetics, the newness of something, environmental, ethical, social inclusion. There's lots of things that we value and that we pay money for. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this half by half and just take you through some of these, because I think it's important to realize when certain words are appropriate and when they're not. The words on the right, in general, are the words you use in a value proposition that's tailored in B2B settings, to businesses. These words and these values are rational values. You can talk about them. They're overt. On the left, these are more emotional values. These are the values that are used to sell consumer products. Now, it's not to say that they're mutually exclusive, right? See, this is a semi-permeable membrane. Things can get in and out, go back and forth. And so it's often true that they cross over, but in general, a good starting point is this assumption. And I mean, if you ask somebody, oh, why did you buy that, why did you buy that new iPod? Why did you line up to buy that new iPod? Oh, well, they're so easy to use, and well, maybe they look cool. They're so easy to use, and the quality is just amazing on this stuff. Really, it's more about status and newness for people, right? They identify as an early adopter. They identify with the Apple brand, so it's really a personal identity thing. So let's talk about these ones on the right. Just to give you some examples so you can think about how this applies to your business. So lowering risk is a big one. So how do we lower risk in business-to-business sales? Well, we could add a guarantee to our product and say, if you don't like it, I'll give you your money back within 6 months. That's a really tried and tested way of lowering the risk to adoption of new products. Saving time, right? That was the main value dimension, the main value prop of the assembly line, Ford's assembly line, right? It saved a ton of time. It took the time to make a car from about 12 hours down to about 90 minutes, and then eventually they were down to 10 seconds per car. So saving time is the preeminent value. Saving or making money, right? This is one that, if you just think of an advertising company like Astral. So Doritos pays Astral and says, I'll pay you some money, you do your thing, with the end goal, the expectation that more money will be made for Doritos, right? So, Doritos gives Astral $1 million for an ad campaign, and they get back $3 or $4 million in terms of sales. So Astral is enabling Doritos to make money, right? So making money is a value. This is similar to the last point, but here it's built right into the business model. You can enable another company or another business to do their job well in business-to-business sales. Rolls-Royce don't just make cars. Of course, they manufacture and repair airplane engines. They do a great job at it. They're the world leaders, one of the world leaders in it. But they've got this great business model which says that Rolls-Royce don't only get paid when something needs fixing. They get paid for every hour that one of their engines is flying. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because what's in the best interest of the airline is to have these things working all the time, not breaking down. And if you're Rolls-Royce and you only make money when something needs fixing, I'm not going to say they're going to sabotage the things, but I mean, they're going to ensure that they're still in business in terms of maintenance. So instead, they say, no, let's switch the business model slightly so we get rewarded for our good work. All right? And this is interesting, actually. This kind of idea is true. There's an analogy here to the healthcare in here, especially in Ontario, where my sister works at a hospital up in Lindsay, and she's a member of a family health organization. Life sciences people, do you know what I'm talking about? Yes? Which, correct me if I'm wrong, life sciences isn't my field, but of course, so she gets paid for how many people that are registered to her practice, whether they're sick or not. This isn't 100% of her salary. She still gets paid for visits and consultations and things like that. But they're starting to realize that this model, maybe we can shift. So it's basically in her vested interest to keep people healthy rather than just treating them when they're sick. People value convenience, FreshBooks. You do away with all the messy Excel spreadsheets that are flying around your office. Quality. IBM has a reputation for high-quality stuff, which perhaps doesn't extend to desktop computers anymore. But these big mainframes, this is kind of all they do anymore, is these big mainframe computers that do work really well. They're kind of the industry standard for the big ones. Customizability. This is Salesforce, which is really, really flexible in what you can do with it. Kind of customize it to your own needs. So again, these are the kinds of things, all of these examples I came up with were B2B examples, right? So on the other side, we've got the B to C examples, right? Selling to customers. Usability. This is a huge one that we talk about in ICT. People always talk about how easy the iPhone is to use and how easy the iPad is to use. I mean, relatively, that's probably true. My wife can't figure out how to use an iPad. And she's not really interested in it anyway. She still doesn't have a cell phone. When we talk about usability, give it the book test. If your thing is as easy as a book, then you've got an easy-to-use solution. Right? I mean, there's only one step to starting to engage with the content of a book, and that's just to open it. That's it. Right? That's an easy product to use. Health. This is, according to your family, when they all sit around for holiday dinner, this is the most important value of them all, right? Health. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. So health health and well-being is a preeminent value. Aesthetics. I was in Venice 2 years ago, and they've got these beautiful, sculpted glass things that have no redeeming value except that they look beautiful, right? There's nothing else. There's no other reason you'd buy one, I don't think. Status. This is a big one. This comes up a lot. Anybody know what kind of bag that is? Right. See, there's no logo there anywhere, right? You just knew that it was a Louis Vuitton, right? So status is a big seller, right? And in tech, it's becoming actually really important. This is something that Apple realized that nobody else could really figure out. Newness, right? The newness of an iPad in itself is attractive to a lot of people. The fact that it's the first one. And of course, it helps that it's in a Louis Vuitton iPad case there. But self-actualization. This is a kind of a complicated word, but essentially what we mean by that is people value getting better at something. They value their own inner drive, and there's an inner drive that pushes people to get better at things. Whether it's a video game, whether it's a musical instrument, whether it's playing basketball, people enjoy that feeling of getting better. So I stole this example there's a book by Dan Pink called Drive. And it's all about motivation, what motivates people. It's a great, great little book. And he talks about somebody staying at home on a Friday night practicing the oboe. Why would somebody do such a strange thing? Asks the economist, who has predicated theory on the fact that people act in a rational way that will increase their ability to make money and would decrease the parts of their life that don't allow them to make money. Right? This is Homo economist, right? Homo economicus? Rational man. So what's this rational man doing wasting time playing the oboe? It's certainly not going to increase his money making. Well, it might. He might be in a band, but imagine he's just doing it for fun. It's not saving him time. In fact, it's taking up some time. Even in an evolutionary lens, I mean, is it going to help him find a mate? I don't know, maybe. But the point is that these values are very hard to talk about. All right? People might just say, "Oh, it makes me feel good," or "I love video games," but it's very hard to kind of describe what's going on here. But it's a value nonetheless. Environmental values, right? The Prius. I mean, people pay extra for this value. Right? I'm kind of cynical about it, but if you add the word green in your value proposition and put it on the outside of your packaging, you can suddenly charge like twice as much, right? And sell twice as many things. So there's a lot of greenwashing going on. Ethical is very similar, right? People will go to 10,000 villages and pay extra because of the assumption, and there's a lot of data to back that up, that the 10,000 villages people actually have relationships with people on the ground in Namibia and other developing countries where stuff's made. And people pay for that privilege. Fair trade coffee is the same. That's a value people will pay money for. And then, of course, there's the value of being connected, the social inclusion value. Again, Facebook, you're not saving any time. You're certainly not saving any money on Facebook. But this value trumps those in this case. So we've got some words. We've seen some examples. So what's the process look like to draft a value proposition? The first thing is to come up with a hypothesis. I think my business will provide blank for whom, for blank. And this is actually the first thing I want you to do right now. I like that we're in tables here, and you've got the benefit of being able to bounce these ideas off people. Just take 2 minutes and scribble down the current kind of state of what you're thinking about your business, and finish this sentence. I think my business will provide what? So what is it? What are you going to provide, and for whom? Okay, take 2 minutes and try that. After you've scribbled something down, tell somebody. Tell somebody. See if they get it. Basically, see if you're talking chemical isomer speak or if they actually understand what you're talking about. I think it's a good idea. Try it on at least one person. Feedback is crucial. Feedback is what builds businesses. Not just any feedback, although I'm sure your table mates are very capable. Feedback from your potential customers. If we think that we can just take a product that we've got and take it straight to the customer, this never works, or rarely works. What we need to do is we need to attack the target obliquely. So we need to start with the problem that they are having. We need to identify a problem in their life. We need to observe and talk to customers, right, to find out what they really do value, to see if what we've assumed is correct. Then we need to kind of come up with a prototype or a pilot that makes sense, that solves that problem in a particular way. And then the connection between the product and the customer will emerge. Again, with the emergent property. So what we're going to do is essentially start on this axis. We're going to ask ourselves, how can we get feedback from customers to ensure that we understand the problems that they have? When we're doing this testing, we're always iterating. We're always stating our hypothesis. I think that my business will be able to do X, Y, Z, and it will solve this problem. Then we go out and test it in the marketplace. And then eventually, once we've got enough data and validation, we get to a final version which says, I'm pretty sure now, I'm 95% certain that XYZ Industries can deliver a solution that does X, Y, and Z for these people. So it moves from being a hypothesis to a guiding principle in your business plans. So how do we do that? You gotta go outside. You gotta leave your office. I've heard advisors here at Mars say, I'm banning you from writing any more code until you pick up the phone and you talk to at least 5 customers, or until you walk into a hospital and talk to the doctors about what their lives are like. You know, I had a client that was working in the education space. You know, he was spending thousands and thousands of dollars developing this amazing, he had like 600 pages of lesson plans and multimedia things. He hadn't talked to a teacher since he was in high school, right? And I kept telling him, just get some of it out there. He didn't want to leak it, didn't want to, you know, compromise his IP. But, you know, when he finally gets to the market, what if teachers say, no, we don't do that anymore? He's just wasted 2 years of his life, right? That's kind of depressing. So get out and talk to people. This is a tool that's in the Alexander Osterwalder book, which Carrie mentioned briefly. This is a great tool for business modeling, and it's got a lot of templates like this. It's, you know, there's an actual template you fill out for your business model, and it shows how all the pieces are connected. And it's basically a way of developing empathy with your customers. The first thing is to realize is that you are not your customer. Right? You are not the same as the people you're selling to. There's a big difference. You got to get in their shoes. What does their boss yell at them for to do better at? What stresses them? What keeps them up at night? What parts of their day do they hate that maybe you could make better for them? What are their pain points in the day, frustrations, obstacles? And then what are the gain points? So how could their lives be better with your intervention? Another way of doing this is with what we call a day in the life scenario. So this is basically mapping our way through. So Ernie here, he fixes airplanes. And what we want to do is we want to take it through a before and after scenario with Ernie. So Ernie is, you know, in a hangar and he's working on an airplane and he encounters a problem he's never seen before, a part of the engine that he's never seen. So what he has to do is he has to go all the way back up to the library, get the big thick manual and look up the problem and then come back down and solve it. The problems of that, of course, is that it delays the plane, costs the airline a lot of money, and now Ernie is annoyed because he's got to lug this big book downstairs. So along comes an ebook reader, right, with all of the airplane manual stuff loaded up on it. The new outcomes are, of course, that Ernie can get the information quickly and that the airline saves the cost of cancellation or of delay. So that's a way of mapping out what the problem is and what your solution is. And again, we're developing empathy with this guy, Ernie, who's got problems in his life. These kinds of things I'm talking about and going out and talking to the Ernies and talking to people about what they think of your idea is primary market research. There's many, many different kinds that you can do, lead user, customer interviews. I mean, the focus group is probably the most famous one, but people often don't tell you what they actually think in a focus group. They tell you what they think you want to hear, right? So, I mean, it's better to get right in their office, say, can I come visit you or buy you a coffee, and, you know, listen to them complain for half an hour, right? There's valuable information in that. Here at Mars, we offer what's called secondary market research that's available to all registered Mars clients for free. They subscribe to all this databases of market intelligence, IDC, Forrester, Gardner, Frost & Sullivan, and we get valuable information from that. So after you've got all this information, you test your value proposition. You ask all these people, what do you think about this? Is this something that you'd be willing to pay for? This iteration, by the way, comes up from this amazing book, Steve Blank, 4 Steps to Epiphany. It's an amazing book. It's out of print, unfortunately. I've been trying to find one for the last month. So we keep trading around this dog-eared copy. But so if anybody has like... Okay, done. Thank you. I've been trying to find it in Canada. Silly me. After you iterate here and you test, there's 3 things that can happen. Confirmed. Yes, that's a great idea. I would pay money for that. That's something I'd be willing to move forward on. Good. That's the green light. Iterate means, it's cool, but I would like to pay for this, this, and this, and not so much this. Or I'm not sure why saving time is important. I don't think that needs to be part of your value proposition. So you iterate, you fix it, and go and do it all again. Last one, get out. If people are like, that is a terrible idea, nobody's going to pay money for that, you need to rethink things. And that, aside from being a failure, is a badge of honor. You've learned a lot, right? And in Canada, people are failure averse, which is a shame because we learn when we make mistakes and we fail on things. In the States, these venture capitalists and these successful entrepreneurs, they wear their failures like a sleeve. They're like, yeah, I burned through $20 million in 6 months, and then I bankrupted and I went on and started my next thing, It's not so bad to exit. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're being smart and you're thinking harder about exactly what the market needs. So when we start looking at the fit between, not the problem and the customer, but we start looking at the fit between the problem and the actual product or solution you've got, this is where we need to start prototyping. Eventually, we want to be at a stage where we have what we might call a whole product. So this is the widget itself, plus delivery, plus service support, plus marketing campaigns. So this is the whole product, all the ancillary stuff that goes around the product. The people want to get here and then launch. You can't. Well, I mean, you might be able to, but most of us have limited time, limited budgets, and we don't even really know if it works yet. So what you need to do is start with a minimum viable product. This is what Eric Ries was talking about with his avatars, right? What's the bare minimum you can get away with? Send it out there to 40 potential customers. See what they think. Are they going to pay for it? Or you don't even have to charge them yet. Just say, here, free demo. What do you think? That's a really valuable source of information. If they love it, if everything's good, make more features, send it out to more people, and kind of bootstrap your way up. If they say, I don't know, you kind of got it, but I'd like to see X, Y, and Z, add in X, Y, Z, and iterate again. Go out and do some more testing. So the idea is to get from minimum viable product, which is very early on, and it only has a few value features, hopefully the right ones, but they'll soon tell you if they're not, and the whole product, which is later on and has a whole suite of value features. We get there through iterations. Test, verify, relaunch. Test, verify, relaunch. And you do it in a public way so that you can get input from people. So these little iterations are from Steve Blank, this kind of 4-point here. You've got a hypothesis, test it. Test to see if you're solving the right problem, if that makes sense with the customer. Then start to test your actual solution to that. And one of the things there, when you're choosing, well, what features do we include in our minimal valuable products? Which ones are important? Well, your customers will tell you that. Which are important to your customers? One tool that we use in the workshops, I'll just describe it quickly here, is what we call the strategy canvas. And this is from the Blue Ocean Strategy book. A great book, and they use this tool which basically allows you to map out the profile of your offering compared to the competition. So along the bottom, what are the value dimensions of what you're offering? Along the top there, how does your business rate on that criteria? So this is one that's from the book for Southwest Airlines. Now, Southwest Airlines are not comparing themselves to other two airlines. They're saying, no, we're in the business of getting from point A to point B. So our competition is, well, there's one there for all the other average airlines, and then there's one there for car transport. That's a competitor. So here are all the things you might think about when you need to get from A to B. Price, meals, does it leave when I want it to? How fast is it? Friendly service. Southwest Airlines aren't trying to be the best in every single category. They're only the best in the categories that matter to their target customers. The rest of them, they don't care about. So they need to pick the features and position themselves in a way such that their value proposition speaks clearly to their target customers. when you're looking at those value dimensions, there's a few things you can do. You can say, which one of these dimensions doesn't really matter, actually, to our target customers? The best example of this is battery life in the iPhone, right? Steve Jobs is like, we'll still sell millions of iPhones. I'm not putting any money into the battery because people don't buy the iPhones because they've got awesome batteries, right? They still sold a ton. Now, over time, of course, they make better batteries, but the point is that he wanted to get it out. He didn't wait until every single thing was perfect. You just got to get it out. And then people will tell you, hey, the battery sucks. That matters. So you go back and fix the battery next time. But it wasn't the reason people buy iPhones are because they look cool, there's a status thing, and they're easy to use. Right? Consider reducing features that aren't of that much value. Consider raising the features that differentiate you from your competition. So if you found something, you're like, hey, we're better at that than them, then that goes in your value proposition, and that's what you emphasize. That's what you raise the bar on. And of course, if you're really looking to create a blue ocean for yourself, a new market in which there are no other competitors, you need to start thinking about whether there are value dimensions that can be completely invented, that nobody's ever seen before. And for Apple, that was the apps. Right? When there was no apps before they came along. Now everybody's copying them, but they created this whole new space, this whole new value dimension. People didn't even know they valued apps until Apple came along and said, we've got apps. And people were like, that's cool. I like those, whatever they are. So the process, again, once you've got a minimum viable product, you test it. So I want to end here, which is basically a summary of what the value proposition should look like. And what I think would be great, just while I'm taking, well, maybe 2 questions, because we're running out of time, is you can start to scribble down your own value proposition. Write that sentence, right? Change it a little bit based on the feedback of the people at your table. What is it? Who are you offering it to? And what values are you bringing them? That should be a compelling statement that you can use as the hypothesis or the thesis of your journey moving forward. Thanks very much. I'll leave that up there. Do we have time, Carrie, for a couple?
Yeah, I think we have a couple. We can take a couple questions if anyone has one or two.
Hi, just a quick question about the Google example you gave earlier. Sometimes a company would have more than one value proposition, for example, the end user versus the actual business, the people that will pay you money. In a pitch, which one would you choose?
That's a great question. I would choose the one that's closest to the people you're pitching. So an investor pitch? Yeah, so in an investor pitch, I would use the ad placement one. So who's actually your customer? And what's the value proposition of the customer? So this is what we bring to ad companies. Now, it's important to say, too, there might be a slide in there on user experience, on what the end users, why the end users will keep coming back, because it's easy to use, you get relevant information, et cetera, et cetera. But I would focus on the ad thing, because they want to know how you're going to make money. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Joe. I have a question regarding the other part of Steve Blank's. He's talking about validating whether you have the right customer target. So how do I test out whether I have the right target customer?
You ask them.
Well, are you the right customer?
Yeah, you ask. You talk to people. You take people out for coffee. And it's if you ask people to start complaining, they will complain and complain and complain. And if in that complaining you don't hear the problem that you're trying to solve, then it's probably not the right target.
And when I'm testing, is it better to go to those smaller customers, knowing that if I kill them accidentally, it won't affect me too badly later on?
I'm not sure your choice of words. I don't understand what you mean. Do you mean if they don't?
If I screw up in the sense that I did not.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, certainly. I mean, just start with the people in your network, right? That you know are in that space. Ask them to be honest, friends of friends, things like that. Yeah, start with people in your networks, and then you can kind of move your way out into, cold calling people and saying, I'm just starting out. I would love to pick your brain on XYZ. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Himi Syed,
Hi.
and listening to you, I started thinking about Starbucks and what their value proposition from the customer's perspective might be. And what I came up with is they sell non-alcoholic beverages at alcoholic prices.
Nice.
And
That's a value proposition behind closed doors, and they're all laughing
and that's because you came up with the winners, and it was that's what you were getting, not their official value proposition. When I saw the Blue Ocean book, I got it right away. I read it backwards and forwards, and there's one lingering question. When you showed the chart with the Southwest and they're competing with cars, it's a different category, thus their Blue Ocean. I never understood and have not been able to find an answer that they have the hockey stick with the chart. But if you just move the variables around, you will get the canyons and the valleys and everything. And I don't know if they just do that for the visual simplicity, or is there actually a something else to plotting that chart?
Yeah, it's just, the way I understand it, it's just visually cleaner to cluster. If you have 3 graphs that look like that, I keep using the word graph. To partly answer your question, it's not a graph. It's their profiles, and it doesn't really matter what order they're in. No. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Thank you.
My question is, sometimes the customers don't know what they want. Like Steve Jobs was classical. He never believed in focus group or asking customers. He just got out the product like the iPad, and then you have to figure out how it fits into your life.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
That's a great question. And I mean, first of all, I think we know that Steve Jobs is a bit of an anomaly, right? He had an insight there that many people don't. However, the point is very well taken. There's a quote by Henry Ford, and he says that if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Right? But that's not really what they want. What they want is to get faster from A to B. That's the problem. The problem is that they have a weak horse. The problem is really much deeper. So there's a couple ways that we can do this. One of them, and this comes from Eric Ries, and I really like this. It's called the 5 whys. So somebody says, I want a new horse, and then you say, why? Well, it's too slow. Why? Well, I need to get places quicker. Why? Well, because I need to get to my job on time, otherwise I'll get fired. And you keep, like a little kid, you keep asking why, only 5 times though, otherwise you drive them nuts. And you keep asking why, and then eventually you'll get to the root of the problem, the real problem you're trying to solve. All right? That's one technique. The other technique is don't ask people, just watch them. And I don't mean like spy on them. But I mean, one of the best things people can do if they're in life sciences, or if there's a lot of healthcare IT clients here, go to a hospital and walk around and watch people. Like, just stand and watch the nurses station for an hour. They might ask you to leave, and you can notice problems. Oh, there's always 4 people lining up at that computer. I wonder why that is. Or they have to take the chart from there to there to there to there for each patient. That doesn't make sense. Why aren't they all? And you can start to identify problems. Now, if you ask those nurses, what's the most annoying thing about your job, they might say, the coffee sucks, right? Because they haven't, this zigzag pattern they make every day, they just do it without thinking about it. Right? So, and there's, if you're interested, there's lots of other, there's almost like ethnographic research that marketers do, which is kind of participant observation based in anthropology, right? Which is, how do these people actually act with my product, You got 3 phones on a desk, and you ask somebody, which one's your favorite? And they say, that one, for sure. But then you say, okay, great, let's go get some coffee. And then you see them, he's playing with this one. He plays with that one for 30 seconds. He plays with this one for 3 minutes. Right? So he thinks he likes that one, but he's really drawn to this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yeah?
From a money-making standpoint, you might assume that having your target customer be everyone would be the optimal case. But it seems like in this value proposition process, saying everyone is kind of a no-no, right?
Yeah. Or no. Yes, it's no.
One, I guess, is it ever the right answer? And in some cases, are you just using a different word for everyone, like fashion-conscious consumers, right?
Well, so the word everyone is almost always not advised. Especially, if you're Google, you could probably say everyone, because you pretty much affect everyone, right? Fashion-conscious consumers, if Winners was a startup that came in here, we would say, whoa, fashion-conscious consumers is way too broad. You need to start with women between the ages of 18 to 23 who live in the annex. That's your first target customer. Then in 6 months, you can expand that to St. Jamestown, and then you can expand here and here and here, and then eventually you're talking about all Canadians who are fashion conscious, and slowly try and get to everyone. The idea, though, with your value proposition is that you create a target customer which is your wedge customer. It's the one that gets you into a market, gets you established, and gets you some money in so that you can grow more and more and more. You had another question in there, didn't you? Or was that it?
No, I think you answered it. Is everyone ever the
right.
acceptable? So.
Yeah, no. It's not really.
So thanks, Joe. That was excellent.
Great,
Really enjoyed
thank
it.
you. It's fun. Thanks. Thank you.